Morning, Eddie.
Morning, Razor.
Firstly, can we just get your reaction to Lewis Hall's call-up by England to the senior squad for the first time, and how much you feel he deserves it?
Yeah, delighted for Lewis. I think he's had a really good start to the season. Very consistent, really mature displays. I think still a lot more to come from him. I think we're seeing him evolve and develop week in, week out. At the moment, I think he's adding layers to his game all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's a great achievement for someone so young, and we're all delighted for him.
You signed last year initially on loan a very talented player who'd come through Chelsea's academy, but how much progress have you seen in his game, and also the willingness to work with you and learn and improve over the last 12 months or so?
Yeah, as you say, we signed a very talented player. There was no doubt about that. Just had a few things to work on, as we all do, regardless of age. But I think the most impressive thing about Lewis last year was that he committed to that, and the work that he put in behind the scenes that no one sees, the double sessions, the individual work. Credit to him for doing that and staying very sort of in the present and able to day in, day out produce consistent, good training performances. He's now reaping the rewards from that. And we say to new players all the time when they come to the football club, you have to go through sometimes a process to get to the end point. But the most important thing is that you commit to that, and he did. And yeah, credit to the coaches as well who've worked with him. And it's not just me, of course. It's a real team of people that work with all the players. And I'm really pleased for Lewis's family. He's got a great family that are really behind him, that really support him and have supported him during the move. So I think it's a really positive story.
And on the other side of your Newcastle defence at the moment, you have Tino Livramento, who isn't in the senior England squad this time, but has been called up already this season. How happy are you with his performances and what he's giving the team during this run in the side?
Very pleased with his recent performances. I think he's shown his strengths. I think that's key to any player. You've got to be clear in what you are and how to produce your best performances, of course, to show your strengths. And I think his attacking, his dribbling with the ball in wide areas and in central areas has been really good. Still feel, again, there's more to come from Tino, especially in the attacking third with assists and chance creation. But I think his defending as well, when you look at the opponents he's been up against in recent games and how well he's nullified certain players' strengths. His 1v1 actions have been very good defensively. So again, I think his career's in a good place and he's got to continue to improve.
Nottingham Forest away on Sunday. You've already played them at the City Ground this season in the League Cup. They're having a great season, aren't they? Third in the Premier League table as it stands. Yeah,
they are, and I think Nuno deserves huge credit for the job that he's done. They have, I think, recruited really well in recent transfer windows. I think they've added some really good players to their squad. They've got a way of playing that really works for them and very tough to play against. I think you can see from their defensive record this year how strong that is and what a test that's going to pose to us to try and score against them. And I think that's given them the platform then to score at the other end. A really solid defensive base with really good pace in wide areas and threats in the forward positions.
And Chris Wood was a very valuable member of your team and your squad, but during his 12 months playing for Newcastle, he didn't give you the goals that he's been able to score for Nottingham Forest. But how happy are you to see him flourishing, having made that move?
I'm delighted for Chris on a personal level because I think for me it was never lost how well he played for us. He did everything but score. In terms of his positive performances were so important in our efforts to stay in the league, especially that first season when he joined. The work that he did, the unseen things, the bringing other players into play. I think if you asked his teammates that played with him in that season, they'd say Chris was one of the reasons that we changed our position in the league and was able to win consistently. But he just didn't get the goals that then elevated his performances or probably got the wider world seeing what a transformation he played in our team. But he was very selfless, he was very team orientated, and that's why now on a personal level for him he's getting the individual accolades that his goals are are bringing him, and I'm delighted for him personally. A great lad, great attitude. I think he had a really good time with us, and really pleased to see players go on and do well.
Keith? Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
3 years ago today, you were stood there, St James's Park, with a scarf above your head, ready for the challenge that lay ahead. So happy birthday! How does it feel looking back on that 3 years?
Yeah, it feels good to still be here, because when you come in, you're never sure. You're never sure how things are going to go, and you come in with the best intentions. You come in with lots of dreams and lots of emotions, really, because as you say, there's uncertainty, there's sort of some insecurities, because you're going into the unknown, and lots of challenges awaited us at that moment. The first priority, of course, was to stay in the league. It was the only thing that consumed me in that moment, and we got through a lot of work trying to make certain changes, but also try and get the best out of what was already here. And when you look back at the 3 years as a whole, I think back to loads of positive memories, lots of good feelings, and I'm so pleased with how it's gone. I'm so, as I say, thrilled to still be sat in the position and still dreaming of what may lie ahead.
Yeah, so it sounds there from the way you're speaking that you're happy with the progress.
Yeah, of course I'm happy with the progress. You always want more. You're always not entirely satisfied, because we haven't got the one thing that we wanted when we came in, which was a trophy. That's the dream. That's still the dream, and it's still driving us. Yeah.
What is your biggest learning over the last 3 years, particularly about the football club and everything that comes along with it?
I don't think there's one thing, Keith. It would be great to give you a soundbite and to sort of give you the one thing, but I think there's just lots of little things that you pick up, and you learn, and you develop, and you change. And sometimes, personally, you don't realise you're changing, but you are. And through time, I think that's a natural process as well. So I think the key thing for me is to try and give my best every day to bring long-term success here, and to try and bring solid foundations to the football club, so whoever comes in next has a chance to take the club on and be successful as well.
On Chris Wood and Elliot Anderson, two players where you've said a number of times in this room that you really liked. Were those examples of players that obviously you've had to sell for PSR reasons, but were those examples of players that you've sold well, or how do you view that now? Because obviously both of them flourishing at Nottingham Forest.
I don't really tend to look at it selling well. I think Elliot was a sale that we didn't want to make. No one at the football club internally wanted to make that sale, but we had to. So I think that one is in a very unusual place, really, because I think that will be happening again, not just here, but at other football clubs where you're selling players for financial reasons. I don't think it's something that's really been done a lot in the history of the game, unless you're under financial restrictions where you have to sell, and of course that's happened many times. But in terms of a club that has financial backing but has to sell because of the rules, that's a new one. Chris's one was slightly different, because I think it was really thinking of Chris, and we had obviously Alex and Callum and Chris, three experienced strikers that all would want to play and start games, and Chris felt that he wanted that opportunity to play week in, week out, and we reluctantly agreed to that. But as I said, I don't think there was any ill feeling. It was all with each other's blessing, and you have to sell players and trade too in the modern environment.
With Chris Wood and the goals that he's scored this season, he's obviously on fire, and I suppose the injuries you've had at the top end of the pitch. I know obviously you can play Anthony in there, and you have. Is he the striker that you've perhaps missed in the early weeks of the season?
Well, I certainly think we've missed Callum. There's no doubt about that. Callum's list of qualities is long. His experience is rich. We've missed that know-how and the ability to rest Alex and rotate Alex. I think Will, who was brought in as that young striker to develop, is really coming along nicely. We're really happy with him. But of course, you're always going to miss a striker of Callum's quality and calibre.
Just finally from me, in terms of injuries for the weekend, is there anything fresh after after Arsenal? You missing anyone?
I don't think we're missing anyone new. No, I don't think there's anything new that's developed. We're still in the situation where we're working to get the players back that are currently injured. I think they're all in a decent enough place on their respective journeys back. So yeah, we're happy.
Will the weekend come too soon for Kieran and Callum then?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Andy?
Well, Eddie, I'm not going to presume how a Premier League manager celebrates a third-year anniversary, but hypothetically speaking, when Jason does bring in a big cake with candles and you blow them out, what are you going to wish for from your 4th year at the club, would you say?
Well, I think the celebrations is a press conference, which is lovely. I think the 4th year, I think we're looking at progression, we're looking at improvement, we're looking at a really tight Premier League this year. So consistency, I think, is a big word for us. Not necessarily the most interesting response, I know, but these are the things that we judge ourselves by. I think if we can find that consistency and the ability to win games, especially consecutive games, it's going to be, I think it will remain a tight Premier League this year. So the teams that are able to put those winning spells and sequences together will have the best chance of success, and that's what we're trying to do.
I was speaking to a bloke the other day and he was recounting a story where he saw you driving out of somewhere and you waved at him, he turned into a little child, fully grown bloke. Have you, after 3 years, kind of come to terms with just how much, I guess, you mean to the people of Newcastle already?
Yeah, I think that's part of the change, really, in terms of you come in sort of wide-eyed and want to make a positive impression and try and be successful and do everything it takes to be successful. And then you realise that how big this club is and the loyal support we have, the fascination of the football club in every aspect of the city is geared towards the football club. So I think that they're the things that not necessarily surprise me, because I knew that before coming in. But I think when you're living it and feeling it, yeah, you know the power that you have as the football club, and we have to use that for the good and get out into the community and help people and meet people. And I'm never amazed by that reaction that you talk about. I've got used to it now, but it's still so nice and still so rewarding, really, in many ways.
Just one on Lewis Hall. How important is the word patience these days, especially in modern day football, when there's not a lot of patience flying around, especially when it comes down to developing a young player like Lewis?
Yeah, I think I've used that word a lot in press conferences in my time here. I think sometimes people can look at that as, are you hiding something when you ask for patience, especially with players, and especially young players, really, and where you're trying to develop their careers and develop their game. But patience is something you need, and I know that as a father when you're, with your kids and you whatever you're trying to help them with, whether it's your maths, their maths, or whatever subject or part of their life, you can get frustrated and you can get impatient with their development. But you need to sometimes just be calm and let them develop in their own way. And I think we always try and push the players and we always try and help them. And Lewis is a really good case in point for us now to point to in the future to go, look. And it was the same with Anthony, exactly the same. People forget that you do go through a period with every player, and it's at different times. You can never look at one case in point and go, right, that's how long it will take you. It's all unique to the individual. But Lewis really committed to the work, and as I say, now he's reaping the rewards.
Just finally, just one on Forest. I think I was reading somewhere they've got the same record after 10 games as Leicester did in that famous title-winning season. Do we live in an environment in football anymore where dreams can come true like it did for Leicester? Can Nottingham Forest do something like that, do you think? Or in the modern-day world, are we looking at a Premier League where you've got your Manchester Cities, your Arsenal and your Liverpools ensconced at the top of the league?
No, I still think amazing things happen in sport. And I think that's why the sport we're in particular is so interesting to the world, because these things can happen. I mean, you see it time and time again in different phases, whether that's FA Cup or whatever the competition. Leicester's title win, no one saw coming, really. I don't think even Leicester saw it coming at the time. But it was an amazing thing for football, and I think really good for football at that time that a team can upset everybody and prove people wrong. So yeah, Nottingham Forest will believe, and the same sense we believe. we believe that we can do that. Whether we're going to win the Premier League within the next group of years, who knows? But we believe that we can do extraordinary things, and that is at the focal point of everything that you work towards every day.
Thanks, Andy. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
I'm just returning to Elliot Anderson. Obviously you didn't want to sell him, but do you think, with hindsight, it was a good move for him, bearing in mind the depth you have in midfield and the game time he's had at Forest and how he's grabbed that opportunity with both hands?
I think Elliot saw it that way to a point. I don't think he wanted to necessarily leave the club that he's come through and very attached to emotionally. But I think sometimes it can be a good thing for both parties. Obviously, we needed the deal to happen for PSR reasons, and Elliot saw an opportunity then to go to a really good progressive football club and to play potentially more regularly, as you say. He's certainly reaping the rewards from those games that he's played. I've watched a lot of him. I think he's been really good and impressive this year. Through no surprise to us, we're looking at him going, that's the player that we saw for us at the back end of last season when he played a lot in our team. But here he's got goals in him, he's got assists in him, he's got product to his game, and I think we'll see that in the future.
And you touched on it before, but just how tight this Premier League is. You win on Sunday, I think you're just a point behind Forest. Does that give you that extra motivation to go into the break kind of right up there again?
Yeah, I think it does, because I think you look at the league, as you say, we had a disappointing run of results, but we never felt we were too far away. And if you can put a consistent run of results together, then the whole feeling around everything changes. So there's some teams that would have considered to have an unbelievable start, and we're nipping at their heels, and we have to go into this game with that mentality that we're almost coming from behind and we've got to catch up the teams above us, but we're looking to do that.
And just finally for me, what are the plans for the team in the international break for those players that aren't on international duty?
Yeah, the plan is to get some warm weather training in, so we will go to Saudi Arabia for some training, I think for 3 to 4 days, and then we'll come back.
Thank you. I'll go to Dominic.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just on the injury situation, Jacob Murphy, is he okay for Sunday?
He should be okay.
And Sven Botman and Jamal Lascelles, after the international break, will be nearing that sort of 9-month recovery period. Just how close are they? What's the latest on them?
Yeah, I think they're in different spells of their recovery. Jamal will be some time after Sven. Sven's making good progress. We hope that he can begin light training with us within the next few weeks. But there's still a jump from training to playing, so we still need to be patient with him. Again, if we see him before the end of the year, that would be a bonus, but we're probably looking more January with him.
Thank you. Go to Jordan and then Lee Ryder.
Just
Hi.
after Sunday, you'll be 11 games into the season. You have to contend with a third international break of the season. Do you find the number of international breaks at the start of the season excessive, and how much does that impact your squad, having a group of games break and then a group of games again?
Yeah, I think it all depends on your schedule. I think if you're a team that's in Europe, you're probably welcoming the breaks. If you're a team that's not in Europe, you're probably a little bit feeling it's stop-start for us. But we knew at the start of the season the schedule, there's no moans or gripes with that. I think it also depends on what flow you're in as you come to the break. If you're winning games, you want more games in quick succession. If you're not, sometimes a break can be good for you.
And after 2 really positive results at home, how important is it now that you followed up away from home to build that, as I say, that run of consistent results?
Yeah, 2 really good results and performances at home. Now we're looking to, as you say, take that into our away performances, which have been okay, but we haven't got the wins and the points returns that we would have wanted on the road. So we're hoping to change that.
Thanks, Jordan. Lee.
Eddie, just looking at the sort of tight nature of the Premier League table compared to the start of the season when there was a lot of talk of top 4, would qualifying for any of the 3 competitions now be classed as an achievement?
Yeah, I think we've said before, or I've said before, that European qualification is definitely a target for us, and I don't think, of course, with certain competitions you'd prefer to qualify for. I'm not going to sit here and say that's not the case. But depending how the season goes, I think any form of European qualification, certainly from last year, we would have taken any competition. We narrowly missed out, and I think the same would apply this year.
And just on Elliot Anderson, you've obviously got so much competition for places. Is it fair to say he's getting opportunities at Nottingham Forest he might not have got at this club had he stayed?
Difficult to say, Lee, because you're never quite sure how the season's going to unfold. Now, for us, we loved Elliot. And he was slightly different again to the whichever position you look at him in, whether he's a winger or as a midfield player. For us, he's slightly different. I think one of the things that we really liked was his ability to be adaptable and play different positions, and also to use those qualities from both an attacking and a defensive perspective. We used him at the back end of last season in key games, and he did brilliant defensive roles for us, which enabled us to play a certain way and win big games. So he was adaptable, technically excellent. And as I say, I think in the future he's going to be a regular goal scorer in the Premier League.
And just on, obviously, your 3 years here, I mean, a lot of satisfying moments. Is there one you could sort of pick out, or is it staying in the league? Is it qualifying for Europe, or is it something completely random?
And I think it's all those things you've mentioned. So I think staying in the league, the Champions League season was incredible. But even last year, I think we had some amazing moments. And I think the challenge for us is to continue to bring those moments and those games that you immediately spring to your mind, that bring those emotions and those memories. They're the ones you're craving. So hopefully there's more to come for us.
Thanks, Lee. We'll go to Mark, Rebecca and Chris.
Hi, Lee.
Hi.
Hi, Eddie. Sorry, you mentioned there about PSR and how it kind of forces you to sell players. Is it particularly frustrating when you've got to sell a player that you've put a lot of work into as an academy player? And do you think the Premier League really needs to kind of look at that? Because I think it's been mentioned before, there's an incentive to sell academy players for PSR reasons.
Yeah, I think I've said before, I don't understand that rationale really, like why we're in a position that you're incentivized to sell academy products. I don't necessarily think they started with that intention, but the rules of forcing teams to make those decisions. So for us to put all the work into Elliot, that the academy, the coaches, the time, to then see him leave and now flourish for another Premier League football club isn't something I think we should be in a position to do. I think it should be more of a level field, that you can sell players and have the same effect that it was with Elliot. Of course, it was all profit for us, his sale, and that's why we were incentivised to sell him.
And just another question on injuries. You seem to have had a better record this season in terms of keeping players here. Is that a satisfaction for you that you've been able to keep more players and have more availability this season? Is it just the schedule, or is it something else that's happened within the club? I'm
reluctant to give a clear answer to that because you don't want to tempt fate. At the moment, we're looking pretty good. We're still nursing a few injuries, but I think a whole combination of things. As I said last season, when we're getting the injuries, it's not one thing. If it was, it would be a lot easier to fix. The schedule definitely plays a part in that. We're having less games, and the games are the ones that produce the most fatigue. But there's other things. I think we're working smarter. I think James Bunce has come in and had a really positive impact as well. So lots of little things I think that are helping us keep the players on the pitch.
Thanks, Mark. Becca?
Hi, Reddy.
Hi.
Obviously 3 years for you, but also your family as well. Just how much have they enjoyed life in the North East?
Yeah, they are. We speak about it with them regularly to check they're okay, and enjoying everything that the North East is giving them. Really, they're really happy at their school or schools, doing well as well. So checking up on their grades, and they're in a good place. So no, I'm really, really pleased with them. They seem happy, developing accents as well, and I'm having to check the terminology and what certain words mean. But no, they're fully embracing it and loving it.
And obviously, just looking ahead to Forest at the weekend, just how much can you take from the League Cup game, and what can you learn from Forest about that? Or have they changed so much since that you're kind of having to relook at what the team can do at the weekend?
I think with that game, I think they changed a lot of their players. So I think and they changed system, if I remember rightly, in that game as well. So I'm not sure we can take too much from that one, but certainly their recent games, they haven't deviated too much in terms of their plan, but it's been very, very effective. I think they've got a way of playing that's worked very, very well for them, and it's getting the best out of the individual players within their squad as well. So it's seeing certain individuals thrive. So I think we know what to expect, but I think most teams have felt the same thing going into their games, and their results have been very consistent. So, yeah, we're going to have to find a way to pose a threat and, of course, nullify their threats and strengths.
Okay, still a few to get through. We'll start with Chris, then Craig, and then Dom Shaw. Chris?
Morning, Eddie. You said that consistency is a big word for you and something that you look at in terms of judging your side. What have you seen in the away performances so far this season that you think you can change to become more consistent on the road?
Yeah, I think our away performances have been a slightly mixed bag, so the consistency hasn't been absolutely what we want it to be. I think the Fulham game's a standout negative for me, where we didn't perform at any level. I think the other games we've seen really good bits within the games, and then some inconsistent moments within the same game. And I think to win on the road, you have to have that solidity and that energy and everything that we always speak about in terms of our best performances. We need to see there right from minute one, especially against the teams that are in form and doing well. And Nottingham Forest, every time we've been historically, the atmosphere there has been electric, and we expect no different. This will be a really tough examination of our away form and our mentality when we go on the road.
And you've spoken before about the playing at St James's, obviously, and the lift the crowd gives you. Have you found a formula yet that you think can translate onto the road, whereby you don't necessarily need the St James's Park crowd, and that you can put in the same intensity maybe that you do show at home?
Well, we're searching for that, of course, and I think there's a lot that goes into it. We're looking to get the right balance in the team. Certainly in previous seasons, we've done that in the Champions League season. I think we found a formula where we were the same team, regardless of where we played. We had the same characteristics. And we really need to discover that quickly this season in order to have the season that we want.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
When you first arrived, there was a lot of noise, not necessarily from you, but talk of Premier League titles within 5 years, Champions League. You mentioned earlier to Keith there about your motivation being that trophy. Has there been a realigning of those immediate ambitions with you and within the club, and that is your driving force now, that domestic trophy?
I don't necessarily think we've had a meeting that has discussed aims and targets for the season. It's not really been that clearly defined. I think the want is to improve across the board at the football club, from the bottom up in every way, to try and bring long-term success. I think long-term success and stability and consistency of league position is the aim, and of course then you hope through time you can get to where you want to be in terms of trophies and qualification for Europe. So I think it's been looked at longer term than short term, and targets and where you're going to finish.
Just going back to Elliot as well, there's 3 players you've signed now, Tino, Lewis and Anthony, who have all come in as players who had no senior exposure. The England squad, they have all under your watch gone on to achieve that, even though two are still uncapped at the moment. You look at Elliot Anderson, is he a player who could make that jump in that inclusion like they have?
Without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. I remember having many conversations with Elliot about his international future, because that was slightly up in the air. I think he qualified to play for Scotland. And for me, depending on who he wanted to play for, and I'm not going to sort of discuss those conversations, but he should set his dreams and his aims very, very high, because for me it was obvious that he had the ability to get to wherever he wanted to go. So I think England is a big aim for him, and I see that in his future, definitely.
Okay, we've got Dominic, Simon, and then Kieran. Dom?
Hi, Eddie, just one. Lewis, you've talked about the patience there. Can he be motivation and inspiration for Will this season?
Yeah, he can. I think he can, and I think it's useful for players to look back at other players' journeys and histories and their experiences. We've got a lot of experienced players in the squad. It's not just Lewis. You could talk to every player in the squad. They'd have had moments in their careers where they've had to wait and bide their time to get what they ultimately want. But it's what you do in that period. It's what you do when you're not in the team, how do you get into the team? And I think for players like Will, it's commit to your work harder than everybody else, identify the areas of your game that needs improvement, and then go and do it. So I think to look back at Lewis for a player like Will would be beneficial.
Simon?
Hi, Eddie. Very important question. If your kids have a Geordie accent, when are you going to get one?
I have wondered that. I'm thinking it's coming. Obviously, they pick up a lot from school, and they've got a really good network of friends. So I'm surprised by some of the things they're coming up with. But obviously, I'm not socialising their circles, so I'm sure they'll continue to surprise me.
Slightly more seriously, when you said before you want to achieve extraordinary things at the club, what would they be? Can you put your finger on anything? And what would you say to people who think that this club is blocked from achieving extraordinary things?
I think blocked is a strong word. I think I always believe that we can achieve anything. Now, that's easier said than done. Of course, we then have to go to work and try to do that. And you're always trying to get more out of what you have and get the best out of every resource that you have available to you. I don't know what that is, but we will strive to hit it.
Thank you. Kieran?
Eddie, we've seen the progress the club has made in the last 3 years. What do you think needs to be done behind the scenes to kind of be classed as elite in the next 3 years?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it's about improving everything that we do. So if you look at the training ground, you walk around the training ground now, it's unrecognisable from the training ground where we first walked into. But it can't stop, because in 3 years' time, that training ground won't be in the class that it is now. So you can't stop development of any aspect of the football club. Football changes so quickly, and the demands change so quickly. So we have to keep a pace with that. So it's extraordinary changes, really. You go to any department, any area of the football club, you go to the academy, it's unrecognisable. But we have to keep a pace with every other club because the demand's so high. So that's what we're trying to do.
I'm not sure if the international break gives you a chance to look ahead to January and have a few meetings. Do you foresee that being a quiet window with the rules? How is it unpredictable at the moment?
I think it's unpredictable at the moment. I think it's very difficult to see what's going to happen. I think January, I know no one wants to hear it, but it's always a difficult window in every way. So I don't think we should necessarily go into it expecting any different to any other previous January that there's been. Generally, transfer trading was down last summer compared to the previous summer. So will this January then follow suit? So will it be quieter across the board? Possibly, yes. So these are things that don't go in favour of a busy window. So without want to make predictions, I'd be surprised if it deviated from that.
Thanks, Kieran. Gary?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Dan Byrne recently revealed that he started his coaching badges and spoke about his ambition to become, manager in the future. Can you see a potential manager in him, and what is it? What are the attributes you've seen that make you think that? If so,
well, I didn't know that. Yeah, I can see Dan. I definitely see leadership skills in Dan. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and he's a big part of our leadership group. I think he is. Of course, he's a big presence, both in physically, but also emotionally. I think he's very, very caring, looking across the squad, helping people all the time. He's always in the community, mixing with Newcastle supporters, and I think that's an important aspect because he sees the bigger picture. And I think to lead effectively as a manager or as a coach, or be in that leadership position, you have to see across the board. You can't have a narrow view of life. I think Dan's got a rich experience. So yeah, I can see that if that's what he wants to do.
and there's been a lot of debate recently about the pathway for English coaches coming through. Obviously, you did your coaching badges with the Irish FA. What was the reason you did that rather than the English FA?
Yeah, not all my badges. It was the pro license and the A license. For me, it was about speed. So I needed, being a manager and thrust into management at a very early age. I think, it's difficult to remember, but going back to my 30s, but I think I had my B license when I was a manager, become a manager, so I needed my A license as quickly as possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to continue in the role. So I think it was about speed, and that was the next course available.
Okay.
Simple as that.
The press conference.